And this afternoon, we want to learn a little bit about how we can further protect ourselves. Unfortunately, we have to deal with that in our society today. And today, we're glad that Jordan and James, who work with the police department here, they're able to be with us and to give us some very important information. And we're thankful, for the work, that our officers do for us. And as we get started, we want to have a word of prayer as we do. Father in heaven, Lord, I thank you for bringing us here. And Lord, as Jordan and James, as they share this information with us today, give us understanding. And if there are questions to be asked, help us to know the right questions to ask. And help us to be open to listen and to understand the things that we need to do, to protect, our church here, our kids. And so, Lord, we turn it over to them at this time. In Jesus' name, amen.
Hello, testing. Can you hear me okay? Good morning or afternoon. I guess it's afternoon. So what we're going to do is just kind of go over a couple of basic scenarios that we were kind of told y'all wanted to know a little bit about, and then we're going to try to answer as many questions as possible and just kind of have a real-world conversation with y'all today. Now, I understand there's children here and such, so we are going to try to still have that unfortunately, we're talking about a very, very serious matter, but we are going to try to watch how we say it. So, active shooters. Active killers, that's the big thing that we wanted to talk about today if one of those events happens here. And unfortunately, that's just a reality in the world. It could happen. It could happen. If that type of situation happens, I think one of the biggest concerns is what can y'all do legally to defend yourself? So we're going to kind of just talk a little bit about deadly force. It's the same thing in state statute as it is for law enforcement, as it is for a civilian, as it is for a carrying person who's walking around with a concealed firearm. If your life is in danger, and they use the reasonable person standard, what would a reasonable person think in these same situations? But you are authorized to use deadly force if it's the defense of your life or somebody else's life. If something is happening to where a reasonable person would believe that death or very significant injury that could lead to death is about to occur. That is the way the statute reads. It is as clear as mud like most of our statutes are, unfortunately. But the basic simplicity of it is if you feel your life is in danger, and a reasonable person would feel the same way based on the situation, based on the circumstances, based on the factors, you are allowed to use deadly force to defend yourself. That kind of makes sense? It's the easiest way I can explain it. So there was the Texas shooting. I don't know if anybody has ever seen the videos of that, where the guy walked in, started shooting, and one of the security guards immediately drew his firearm and killed the man. That's a good shoot all day long, because there's the reasonable personal standard. There's an immediate active threat that could cause harm to people. I'm not asking if anybody carries in here. I don't need to know. It's not my business. But anytime, if you are going out and you are carrying, you need to be mindful about, okay, am I going to have the ability and the responsibility to do what I need to do if I'm out and about and I see something happening? Is it something I need to intervene in? Not us. If it is something that, an argument is occurring in a parking lot, that is not something you probably need to interject yourself in, unless there's an immediate threat of life. If that makes any sense, it's not one of those things. Here in a confined situation in a church, a little bit different situation, because you have one entrance, that entrance, windows. If somebody comes in intending to hurt somebody in the middle of a service, there's a lot of entries in and out. And that would be one of those situations where if there's the immediate threat and something does happen, then somebody in here probably is going to need to step up and at least do something. We train a little bit with active shooter, a little different than the average civilian. Average civilian, what they encourage people to do is run, hide, fight as a last resort. With law enforcement, we're told, get in there and go find them. It's a little bit different situation, but in situations with the church, you're going to have to defend your congregation. If you're at a nursery, do you all have a nursery here? Kids department. If somebody is in charge of the kids department, they need to have that mindset. If somebody comes in to hurt these children, how am I going to defend them? And that's something that whoever's in there needs to be mentally thinking about. And we say active shooter. Active shooter does not have to have a gun. We call them active killers. Somebody can walk in with a knife and start stabbing someone, unfortunately, and cause just as much damage, if not more so. And they can do it very, very quickly and very, very violently because they happen fast. If you aren't mentally rehearsing, if you aren't mentally thinking to yourself, and he and I'll tell you, when we go in training, when we have our trainees, when we're driving around, what are you thinking if this happens? What are you thinking if this happens? If you drive by a gas station and you see this, what's happening in your mind? How are you going to respond? How are you going to react? How are you going to think? It is going to be a chaotic scene, period. Even if everything goes perfectly, once you call us, we're usually about 5 minutes out. Unless there's an officer right across the street, 5 to 6 minutes out. And in 5 to 6 minutes, a lot can happen in a short amount of time. And Rob, I know you've put up with me for a long time, so I'm going to pick on you a lot. How much can you do in 5 minutes if you had a gun and walked in here? A lot of damage, probably. Yep. Very, very short amount of time. So unfortunately, if you are going to be in a group of people, and this is the same whether you're in a church or a not sporting events because you can't legally carry in there, but even out at the mall, if something happens, are you prepared to defend yourself, your kids, that sort of thing, based on the reasonable personal standard? And that's what the state will use, that's what the cops will use, that's what attorneys will use to determine if you did the right thing. And that's the same thing with us. They will micromanage it all because they should. You've done that. Once we get on scene, we're going to be asking questions. Which way did he go? What did he look like? Is there anybody else? Where is everyone else at? Are they safe? Are there injuries? Because even if people are sitting here injured, until we can get in here and secure it, rescue can't come in. So it's a very, very chaotic scene. Something else to think about? You had a question? I'm sorry.
Yes, I've seen on YouTube that they have classrooms that are built, that the door that they have like these bars that you can close.
Mm-hmm.
And are they things that the public can just install something?
Yeah, that's something that you can get and purchase. Obviously, it's a budget thing, but you need to it. You can do things like getting latches from the inside. That's something that we did at our church. Is we changed everything to where it was you could only lock it from the inside, and there was no basic access to get to it. Unless you had special entry into it. So that way, essentially will deter anybody that trying to get inside. But yes, to answer your question, simply they do have those available, and that's something that I would actually encourage you guys to look into getting for the doors.
Okay, so I know I've just talked about a lot of whole stuff, and I know there's probably some other questions. When it comes to the active killer stuff, we try to get away from the active shooter because, again, it can be more than just a gun. What questions do y'all have on that we're going to try to answer? And again, that'll probably lead into more conversation and stuff I've missed. But again, we want to try to make sure you answer all your questions. Ma'am.
For our church, I think we're locking the back door back there.
Okay.
Yeah, 10:30.
At 10:30. But
In the morning.
there's no one that's really like a deacon or somebody that's there to manage who's coming in and out. But coming down the hall, if they came in this way, that's all of our children. And the nursery and what have you there. Should we even have the door open in the back? Because we bring food in and out there, but should we even have the door unlocked at that time and just have one of the deacons there to open?
Mind if I answer that real quick?
I was going to say, isn't this what you had at y'all's?
Yeah.
I thought you did. This is why I brought you, because you have a lot more experience with the church stuff than I do, because you do it.
So what we actually set up was times. So we have set specific times where every single door, every door is completely locked. There is no way after a specific time to get into the church. And usually for our, I want to say it's for our later service, it's right around like 11:05. So I don't know what time you guys' services actually start, but you want to put a plan in action, find something that's going to work for you guys and tailor it to the church. But my suggestion is every single access point needs to be secured. And then especially, like you said, you got the babies down the hall. We actually have security team members with the children at all times. So, and it rotates. So depending on how many you guys, if you want to put an unofficial security team together, that I highly, highly encourage that. And when you do that, you'll have specific zones for those people, okay? Generally speaking, inside the service, Mike? Inside the service, we will have 2 members in the service at all times as well. We will also have roaming, okay, that roam the campus on the outside. We have usually 1 to 2 with the children at all times. And like I said, we have about 12 members on the security team, approximately. And like I said, we rotate those jobs, okay? Some other things that I suggest, come up with a code system. Like we have like a red alert, okay, is going to be like it's going down. Something bad is happening, okay? We also have green. Green just means that we got a suspicious person on scene, and we need to go and just make contact with that person. And there's nothing wrong. You can have someone that's on the security team that's great with greeting people and kind of incognito go up there and speak with them. And then we have a yellow alert, which is going to be maybe a known subject that we know may be having issues, marital issues or something like that. There's a custody battle or there's a slew of things I could throw at you. But these are the types of things that we suggest that you come up with as your game plan. And that's what we've implemented, and it has worked very well. Yes?
How do you get that alert out? Say someone sees something, they want to give that red alert. How
So-
do they do that?
Essentially, everybody that's on the security team is also known for the security team, because we usually will wear some type of, we have like a little light that is it's a blue light that we turn on, okay, in the event that there's something going on. Everybody that wears those, you could come up with your own thing. You could come up with a badge. You could come up with something that if it's a badge that's yellow or green or something like that, that's a security member that has their name, whatever you want to come up with. But as long as you come up with something that you yourself, if you walk in and you say, there's a guy in the parking lot, and you go directly to that person. Now, I don't know if you guys have radios, but that's something I absolutely would invest in. We have just 2-way radios that you can get on Amazon, something with a 2 to 3 mile radius. So that way the security team can actually speak to one another, okay? We utilize that all the time. Even just to say, hey, make sure that you lock down the west wing or whatever. And then someone's going to go over, and we take the kids from the nursery over to the gym to let them play. So we make sure someone's going with them, just as examples. So it's really about the main thing is coming up with your own game plan and coming up with something that suits you guys. Like I said, all churches are different in size and how many members are here. So, and who wants to be on the security team if there's somebody. But I would highly, 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 and I'll say it again, highly suggest that we designate someone. And the reason why is in the event that, God forbid, something happens, and and once again, you don't have to tell us, but if every one of you are carrying, which that is your, right to do so, we don't need, 47 people shooting at one time. So if that was to happen. So you have designated people that are in charge of that, okay? And that way it's still okay to carry, obviously, as long as you guys allow it. But you want to have these specific people designated for that type of position. Sarge mentioned the Texas shooting. That guy was on the security team. He was former FBI. Not to get too graphic, but he took a shot from about 50 yards away. And it was smack dab on the target.
Mentally rehearse that, because he even said he had mentally rehearsed what he would do.
Yeah. So that's another portion that I like to mention to you guys, training. I'm a trainer, okay? I train people, civilians, all the time. And I can't tell you how many people that I've gotten to come out to a class that, it's usually guys that have a little chip on their shoulder. They think that they shot a couple times when they were kids and they're good to go. So they come out, and if you haven't shot in over a year, 2 years, okay, it's a perishable skill. And it's something that you want to go out and find someone that has a range, has property, and you want to train as often as you possibly can. I still train my guys at the church, and we try and go out there to the range once a month in order to keep them up to date on everything. So, what's that?
Train under stress.
Yeah, training under stress, Sarge said, that's something that you want to do as well. There are different things that you can do, whether you get out there and you just, do some push-ups or you do some jumping jacks or whatever, just get that heart rate going. And then you start shooting to see how accurate that you're going to be. Because, there's safety rules when it comes to shooting, but one of the most important ones is know your target and what's beyond it. Because, pastor, right? You don't want to aim at the guy that's trying to hurt the pastor and then accidentally hit the pastor. So I don't think he'd be very happy about that. I know our pastor, he definitely, told us about that as well. He would not be happy if we accidentally hit him. So we would specifically look for guys that are on the team that are crack shots, that are good. But everybody has a role. Whoever, like I said, we have 12 members that are part of the security team. I don't know if you'll need that many. I suggest it because it just, you might have rotations, things like that. Because we still want to be fed the word. We still want to, be a part of the church. So we would rotate out, 1 week, someone would be in the service and of course still be, vigilant, but not roaming. So just some things to think about. Like I was mentioning to you, as far as like the camera systems are concerned, excuse me, you definitely want to try and look into maybe getting some type of, iPad or some type of, handheld that you can monitor it, or someone that's part of the security team can monitor it through the services. How many services do you do just one in a day? So that would be fairly simple, and you don't have to go out and get the, new iPad or anything like that. Just something that's suitable that would be able to link up to it. But you want someone that's going to be able to roam around and see what's going on at the same time. I'm trying to think here. As far as the access, I would have to go through an in-depth, go through the church, see what the access points are. Things like that, that's something that we might be able to set up and do at another time. But, you definitely want to try and look into securing all the entrance points, so that way we don't have any issues for that. Because sometimes you can just get a random, we all know we have transients around here, and they'll just, roam in. So, any questions so far? Anything? Yes, ma'am.
It shoots like pepper spray. It's a pistol, but it's pepper spray.
Yeah.
How effective are those?
Well, it depends. You're going to just tick me off, but like in those situations, anything is better than nothing. So if you don't feel comfortable, I tell people this all the time when I teach my class. If you don't feel comfortable carrying a firearm, that's fine. But just make sure that you have something. Okay, so if that's what you feel comfortable with, it's better than nothing. Okay. Now, I don't know who's interested in doing the security team. If there are members that are already interested in it, I'll leave my number and you guys can ask me questions. I'd love to talk about this stuff. So, any questions? Any more questions? Yes.
One comment I heard too, like having those mini fire extinguishers in rooms, easily distract them, just spraying it on them.
Yeah, I mean anything to distract, that'd be fine. But we talked about it before, the run, hide, fight. That is suitable to distract somebody. But in the situation, if it's a last resort, then yes.
Right.
But
If you're in the situation, you're spraying him with a fire extinguisher, you're probably at the point where you need to fight.
Yeah,
Because that
right,
means you're
exactly.
probably cornered in at that point, and you need to have the mindset, hey,
Yeah.
this isn't going to be a distraction. This is going to be now I'm fighting for my life.
Yep.
Right.
So
Realistically.
the main thing is that you see statistically, and this is Department of Homeland Security, FBI statistics, all show that soft targets are what's getting hit. Okay, schools, churches, nightclubs that don't allow firearms, things like that. Those types of places are the ones that get hit on a regular basis. So you want to make yourself a hard target. You want to try and make this as hard a target as you possibly can. And people will realize that, okay? Once you start seeing, and I understand you don't want your church, we had the same discussion, you don't want your church to look like it's, a military camp or something like that. But at the same time, if you see guys with radios walking around, it really does deter people. I've had, in my own church, people that are roaming around doing security work, and someone's walking up, they see the guy with the radio, and they just walk off.
Just a general question. Let's say, God forbid, we have an active shooter situation here. What's the response time from your team?
Well, average response time is about 6 to 7 minutes. So think about that. I can shoot. No, I'm not. Hello? Am I bumping something? Oh. I'm not. I can just talk really loud. So average response time is about 6 to 7 minutes, depending on where we're at. It might be 2 seconds for me because I hang out in your parking lot all the time. But realistically speaking, you're looking at about 6 to 7 minutes. Not to toot my own horn or anything like that, but in about 4 seconds, I can empty an entire mag and reload and start firing another mag. So just to put that in perspective, okay? Not to try and scare you, maybe just a little bit more alert, but the 6 to 7 minutes is a long time for us to get here. So, yes.
And part of that time is, don't forget, even if you call 911, there's a 911 operator. Once they answer, that's inputting your information, it's going to be chaotic. Whoever's calling them is going to be screaming, yelling, shouting, and they're going to be asking questions, trying to clarify, where are you at? What's going on? And by the time they input it into their computer system at the dispatch center and then send it over to the dispatcher who's actually running our radio, sometimes 2 to 3 minutes have gone by. And unfortunately, depending on what's happening that day, it's not uncommon for 911 calls sometimes to not be answered for a minute or so. And that's through the sheriff's office dispatch. It's nothing to do with us, but that does happen. And if they're getting inundated with 911 calls, it's not uncommon for that to go even longer. And that's...
So... No?
No, the problem being because even if you had a direct number to me, but I'm off that day, I might not answer, and then I would still have to call the guys working and try to get them over here as well.
Yeah.
The 911 is still the easiest way because even if they're on the line, they're going to be inputting it as fast as they can. But if we're scattered around the city, again, 2 to 3 minutes response time to here, plus a 2-minute time to get everything put in, 5 minutes.
They
even.
are trying to cut that down with, now they have live 911 that goes directly to our computers. That's not been implemented for us yet, but it is for Volusia County. We are supposed to be getting it, hopefully, fingers crossed. And if that happens, that will cut down response times. But know if that happens, everybody, and when I say everybody, you're going to have people from DeLand, probably Daytona. You're probably going to have everybody responding here. You may even have like Seminole County guys coming this way. So just depending on the severity and what's going on. But it's still the time to get here. So to protect yourself, I mean, when I teach my security team, you know, I talk about the run, hide, fight, but it's always a fight response for me first. You have to eliminate the threat. Bad guys do not like good guys with guns. It's just plain and simple. If they have any type of disturbance in what they're, yeah, I gotta go. Sarge has it, so yeah, just give him my information and I'll be more than happy to come back in here and talk to you guys.
Be safe, dude.
Even on my day off, I don't mind, so.
Okay, so to answer that, did that kind of answer the question for the response time? Okay. What other questions you got about active killers that I can try to answer? Go ahead, sir.
What if a lot of people are calling 911 at the same time?
They will answer them as rapidly as they can as they come in. Yes, ma'am.
Our rooms we have very little hiding places here, especially. We have very
What is it, hiding?
little hiding places, so you might assume that you're going to be fighting. So is there anything other than a fire extinguisher that could be in the rooms that would help you fight? Because there's you close the door to the children's room. I know you're supposed to try to hide, close the windows and all of that, but you're going to have to fight. Is there anything? I mean, spray? I mean,
It
wasp spray?
Bear repellent is always good stuff, like that bear spray the hikers carry that is supposed to spray away. Wasp spray is cheaper.
Okay.
I can't. The only thing we tell our trainees, and this is just a real world example, if you walk into a kitchen, there are plenty of things to fight with if you really want to fight with something. And we tell our trainees that all the time. Just because you're in a kitchen doesn't mean you're not. In a weight room, there's plenty of things to fight with. If you look around in here, there's a lot of things we could fight with in here if we really wanted to. If you have that mindset where, okay, now we're going to fight, unfortunately, you can find a lot of stuff. Yes, ma'am.
Cell phones to the head work real well.
Well, depending on the cell phone. Remember the old brick phones that we all used to have back in the day? Those were great. Everything's gotten smaller now with the cell phones, and now they're getting back to bigger with the bigger screens. I understand the situation is going to be chaotic. Even if on a perfect case scenario, you're going to have people running out of here, you're going to have the rooms locked down, you're going to have probably a couple of people, male or female, stepping up to fight. But it's one of those things you have to have the conversation with. I have the conversation with my kids whenever we go to a movie theater, and Rob has met my kids. Hey, if something happens at the movie theater, we're going this way. We're going out this way. What's the situation? We have that plan. Hey, if I can't go with you, you three go this way, I'll go this way, and we'll distract them. Even if the bad guy walks through that door and somebody immediately engages him and he runs out the door, guess what? You've just saved a lot of lives. Even if you haven't stopped him, you've saved a lot of lives. Which is why cameras are good, because when we all show up, what did this guy look like? If you ask 20 different people, you're going to get 20 different descriptions. If you've got a camera and say, hey, this is what he looked like, I can put that picture out to a lot of people very quickly on cell phones, and we'll hopefully be able to find him quicker. County also has facial recognition. It sometimes takes a little while to get it moving, but they do have facial recognition. That just helps. But again, biggest thing is don't just react, force him to react to you, because action is always quicker than reaction, but if you can get him reacting to you, then at least that stops him. Orlando Pulse, everyone knows about that, right? So I actually know some of the guys that were there that night. We spent a lot of time talking. One of them was the third person in. They had him confined in the bathroom within a few minutes, but he still did a lot of damage in that first time when he was in there shooting. We all know that. But they had him confined in the bathroom within 3 minutes. If we can confine somebody somewhere, then we can hold them there and get everybody else out of the church. And that's just going to be a plan. It's one of those, where would we go? What would we do? How would you react? And that's something that, unfortunately, with your elders is part of Seventh-day, right? It's been a long time since I've been in the church. Sorry, sir. That's a conversation the elders would have to have. Hey, where could we put people? If something's happening over there, can we move them out that door? That's just something that you all have to think, because a lot of times people are going to be wanting for direction. What else you got?
So, as far as we've talked about if there is an active killer that comes in, what about preventing it in the first place? I know sometimes if we see a car coming in that we don't recognize, maybe our team can be aware of, hey, we've never seen this car here before. Let's see what he looks like when he gets out. What other things can we do to prevent it? And if we see someone suspicious and we're just unsure, what can we do without them, taking anything out and showing that they're threatening us? What can we do if we see someone that's just acting very suspicious?
Well, first and foremost, absolutely. So you could have, and I know James mentioned this, and I know some of the other churches have it, designated people to just actually go out there, and it's usually one of the members of the church or such. Go out and talk to them and have somebody else watching you. And, hey, Rob, can I pick on you real quick? Yes, sir. I just know you. That's why I'm able to pick on you. Hey, Rob. There's a guy outside in the parking lot. He's standing by that red van. You ever seen him before?
No, I haven't.
Okay, I'm going to go talk to him. Do you mind just kind of watching real quick?
Sure.
Cool. Hey, man. How you doing? My name's Jordan. I'm a member of the church. How you doing, brother? What's going on today? You doing okay? I haven't seen you before. You first time here? Can we talk to you about it? What do you want to know? You can just have a conversation. And a lot of times if you just approach him. Now, if he does attack me right away, one, I know Rob already knows what's going on. Mm-hmm. And two, if I'm going up talking, we have this conversation on this side of us. If I go up and talk to anybody, somewhere in the back of my mind, it's okay, if he swings on me, what am I going to do? Mental preparation is a huge thing. And like we kind of talked about that. But you can absolutely go up and talk to anybody on your property. And if he says, leave me alone, I don't want to talk to you, cool. And if you don't want him on your property, you can ask him to leave. If he doesn't want to leave, then we can come out and make him leave. And that's very, very easy to do. And if you're really uncomfortable, that is one of those situations where, can we go about, how about some examples? And some,
Rob, actually, there was a gentleman here that we didn't want to visit anymore because he was just, a troublemaker and saying certain things to some of our ladies here. And so Rob met him at the door and asked him, just, hey, you're not welcome here. We'd like you to leave. Thankfully, he left after a few minutes after talking to him. But what if he said, no, I'm going to stay put? Or what if he was inside the church and said, nope, I'm staying here? And, are we able to physically remove someone from the building?
if the situation determines that you need to because it's an immediate safety hazard, yes. But if, for example, if somebody just comes in and sits in one of the pews and says, nope, I'm not leaving, and is just, say, cussing up a storm and saying, nope, I'm not leaving, is he an immediate threat to you? Is he trying to hurt you? At that point, you really can't. You can say, we'd like you to leave. We'd like you to leave. Call the cops. Once we get here and we say, you need to leave, and he says, nope. Oh, yes, you are. We might make a scene out of it as we're going out the door, but we're going to get him out of here, and he's probably going to take a ride in the handcuffs. Okay. We don't ever encourage people to go hands-on. And the reason why is you never know. You never know. I don't ever encourage somebody to put hands on somebody. Now, again, can I pick with Rob? I know Rob. That's why I'm picking on Rob. If Rob is being inappropriate to a female, Rob, you need to leave. You need to leave now, man. And if he starts pulling away or saying, nope, I'm not going to leave, oh, yes, you are. as a member of the church, this is not open to the public. You have a right to have anybody you don't want here on your property. Even though it's a church and it's open to everybody, this is what's called quasi-private property. It's just like Walmart. It's just like my house. It is not open to the public. It is not a public building. It's not provided for by the public. You have a right to say, anybody I don't want here on the property, we'd like you to leave.
One of the things that, with that scenario, what Roel was talking about was he was actually in the back here. We had locked the door because we knew which way he came in and so forth. The thing that scared him, like he was engaging with me, we were talking and everything was fine. He didn't like what I was saying, but everything was fine. But then two Andres showed up, and all of a sudden he's like, whoa, you got two people. Oh, you got three. He started getting really worried because there was ended up like 6 guys out there, and it was just, it really diffused anything that would, any problems he was going to cause, and then he left because of how many people were out there. So there's strength in numbers is my point.
100%. 100%. So, yep, especially if you've got, hey, I'm going to go talk to this guy. You got my back? Yep, I got your back. Cool, let's go. And part of that is you mentally rehearse, you practice. Even if there's not an official security team, but you have a group of people that are talking to each other saying, hey, man, today I'm going to watch on that back corner so I can watch these doors coming in. You enjoy the service. Rob and I could talk all day long as private citizens and say, hey, I'm going to watch this side. You stay over on that side. And we just got it, right? Yeah, cool. You can come up with a game plan amongst yourselves. The only thing I would say is let the church members, or at least some of the employees, know, hey, we're going to kind of just watch out. So they know. But have a game plan. You know, it's just like everything else. Unfortunately, y'all are the first line here. Stinks. I was going to say something else, sorry. It stinks, but it is the world today we're living in. But you have a right to ask anybody not to be on the property. For us to issue a trespass warning, they have to be on the property when we get here. And there is 2 things. You can ask anybody to leave, and if they leave and then we show up and you're like, hey, you already left? Cool, we can't trespass him now. He has to be on the property for us to trespass him. So if you know somebody you don't want ever coming back on the property, call us before you ever approach him. And we can come on out there and say, yep, no problem. He's not wanted here. He's not supposed to be here. Let's go. I'm going to take somebody as a representative of the church with me. Hey, you're being trespassed at this time. You can't leave. Here's your warning. If you come back, you go to jail.
And I told him that. I told him if he comes back, we will call the cops.
Mm-hmm.
So he hasn't been back since. So
that's the goal.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
We did have a guy that had to be trespassed. And so he had to be on the property. You cannot block his car in because that's holding him illegally.
Correct. Because if somebody is trying to leave the property and y'all are preventing him from leaving the property, now he's not really trespassing. And it's one of those, it's unfortunate there's a lot of the gray area in the state statutes, but if he's no longer remaining on the property, I'm trying to leave and they're not letting me leave, well, now you kind of have turned the tables, unfortunately. Yes, ma'am, 100% correct.
Let's talk about the homeless, because that's another incident that we had recently. There was a couple on our property. We did trespass them off the property. Now there's 2 on that property, but they cut through here. Mm-hmm. Do you have to catch them on our property to trespass? I mean, they're only on here for like 10 seconds, and then they're onto that one.
We can always go contact them and say, hey, you're not wanted back on the property. We can always go make that contact. But for us to officially issue a trespass warning, they have to be on the property.
Okay, now I know that the owners of that property have trespassed any homeless people on there as well. So that's why they came over to our property. So I think if they're on there and there's already a trespass issued for any homeless, could you trespass them off of that one? Okay. Then maybe that's what we have to do, because I don't know if we're going to catch them in the act and have you guys come like right when they're on our property.
So the thing that you're just talking about, and I'm going to kind of try not to go too hard into the nerdy side of the law real quick, I apologize if I do, is it's called a trespass authorization. We have it for certain pieces of property in the city where the owner has basically sent in a notarized document to us. There's a form that you fill out, giving us authorization for any time of the day or night to be able to remove anybody off of the property. The problem that sometimes causes is like some of these offices, like if they have an employee in there working late or sitting on their car working late and we show up on them, hey, you're not supposed to be here. Well, I work here. you're not supposed to be here, we have trespass authorization, you need to leave the property. And then that usually is something the owner has to figure out with us later on. But yes, we can do a trespass authorization, so if we find somebody sleeping underneath the roof out here at 2 in the morning, yeah, hey, the church doesn't want you here, you're being trespassed, get on out of here.
Okay, got it.
And we have that for a couple of pieces of the vacant property too, in the city.
Okay, great.
What else you got?
All right.
And we're very, 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 very much aware that there is a very large homeless population in Orange City. We are very aware of it. I promise you we are aware of it. This is going to go off topic. Y'all know about the panhandling. We all see the panhandling, right? We can't touch them right now for panhandling. We used to. The Supreme Court has ruled that standing in a public property and asking for money is protected free speech. We can't interfere with them doing that.
Really? I didn't know.
100%. And it was the Supreme Court that ruled on that. That's why we had to stop doing it. They're all, if you notice, it's on a public roadway, public sidewalk. Now, if one of them came over here on your property and started panhandling and asking for money, you have a right, again, private property, quasi-private property. Hey, we don't want you doing that on this property. You need to leave. We're not telling you you can't ask for money. We're saying you can't do it on this property. It's kind of how we got around that. But a public sidewalk, public roadway, Supreme Court's ruled that's protected. We cannot touch them for doing that. Just to let y'all know, because I know we get inundated with them. I know that.
Okay.
Trust me, we know that. Trust me, I promise you, we know that.
Go ahead. I'm going to ask. I'll ask you.
What is the city doing about the homeless people?
What
I mean,
do you mean
they
exactly?
got to be somewhere. I mean, I'm not trying to be like political or anything like that.
I know.
I'm
I'm just trying to be careful how I answer this since you're asking on the city's behalf, so I got to be kind of careful how I answer that one.
I mean, so that we can kind of like steer those persons. You know what I mean? Like,
We
they don't have a place to stay. Well, this is a shelter, or you know what I mean?
United Way is a lot of the resource we give out because they do work with them. There is no shelter currently in Orange City. There's not one in Deltona. There's not one in DeBary. Most of the shelters are on the east side of the county and get inundated. There is one shelter that has a limited capacity up in DeLand, and we have sometimes put people up there. The problem is they have a limited capacity, and they'll sit there and say, nope, we can't take anymore, sorry. But there is no shelter in Orange City. Only time they open up the shelters is during hurricanes and that sort of thing, and that's when your schools are your shelters. Certain types of buildings are your shelters then. But other than that, there is no shelter in Orange City. That kind of answered the question? Yeah, but United Way is what we put towards a lot, American Red Cross, that sort of thing. The Dream Center, you guys know what that is right down the road? That works out a lot towards the homeless to try to help them out because that's actually run by a church.
What is it?
The Dream Center? It's at 2479 South Volusia.
Oh, no.
Right down the road. And it's run by a church. They reach out with it's not a shelter, but they will give haircuts. They'll try to help with some job training. They try to help with letting them have a place to stay. But it's not open at night, and it's not a shelter. Yes, ma'am.
Is that the same place where they're always giving out free food?
That would be the one.
I was only thinking that maybe the church, not for you, but to remind members to secure their vehicles because there are persons going through on the property all the time. So it's good to know to secure your vehicles because a lot of people leave their vehicles going in and out.
And you'd be surprised how many people leave computers, laptops, firearms, money, wallets, credit cards, everything else in their cars and in public and in the open. Yep, happens all the time.
So a question is brought up. We have on Tuesday and Wednesday night, we have prayer meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Wednesday night is a smaller group than Tuesday night usually. And so what would you suggest as far as such a small group, and they meet here in the sanctuary, and all they do is just prayer. They're just having prayer. One suggestion I would assume would lock the doors here. If somebody was to try and come in, what would be your suggestion? Or they forgot to lock the door, let's say. What would be your suggestion as far as how they would protect themselves?
If somebody, you mean like an active killer?
Yeah, somebody, yeah, exactly, yeah.
Same thing we talked about earlier. Even if it's a smaller group, it's the same thing. It's going to be the same type of dynamic, unfortunately, because if somebody is coming in here on a prayer meeting night, they're probably They probably know y'all are meeting here, or at least they've done something, or it's just completely random.
Yeah.
But either way, if they're coming in to hurt you guys, it's the same parameters. If you've got somebody in here, or take it upon the responsibility yourself. If I'm going to be with this group today, it's my job to kind of keep an eye on them. Dads do that. Let me rephrase that. I apologize. I'm not trying to speak badly about mothers, okay? As a dad, anytime I'm out with my kids, I'm looking around going, okay, what's going on out here? And I know Rob does the same thing. I'm sure most of the dads in here do the same thing if you're watching around for your kids. If you've got your friends' kids with you, you're probably doing the same thing. You're watching around looking at them because, hey, they're with my kids, so therefore they're my responsibility. It's your job to kind of keep an eye on the people around you. And that's the same thing if I'm in a church, if I'm going to church, if I'm going anywhere. What's my responsibility?
So have a plan.
And have
Yeah.
something mentally rehearsed in my
Yeah.
head.
Okay.
Did you have a question behind? Did you have a question back there?
No. Okay. No.
Oh, no? She said,
Grandma said no.
What are the places to go where you were? Well, so you can go where you are for your imagination.
Actually, I agree with that because if you're using your imagination, you're going to come up with a lot of ways to get out of problems. So I agree with that because
okay.
if you're thinking outside the box, we've all heard that phrase, there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with thinking outside the box. So good question. Yes, sir.
All right. So how many people do you recommend to be here on a Tuesday and Wednesday since we have those meetings? Like at least 2 for the security or...
So depending obviously on the number of people here, but I would always recommend a minimum of 2. Like there's a reason you'll see multiple cops on every scene, even on a traffic stop. Usually if one of us is driving by, it's always better to have a second set of eyes. So I'm never going to say less than 2 unless that's just, hey, this is an impromptu thing, in which case the one person who's here is going to be doing double duty. But I would always recommend at least 2. I would always recommend having a buddy with you.
For the training, is there a way that we can get a group? I guess this is more a church question than for the girls. How many per group can start the training, at least for the security team and everything?
That would be an answer that the person or the company that you're working with would have to. I guarantee you, most places don't have a minimum, and they probably, even if they have a maximum, they would probably be able to work it with different groups. I know some places they have an instructor to student ratio. Like when we do our firearms qualifications, when we're training our new hires, our firearms instructors only can be responsible for so many students at a time. That would be a question. That would kind of, you would have to ask what the company you go with. So the other person that was here actually teaches this. Yep, James actually, I'm Jordan. James actually teaches this, and there are companies that will teach it too. That if you wanted to, we could probably throw out some ideas for y'all. Even as a private civilian, you can go out and do this training.
Just a small note, if you do carry, please do not tell our pastor. He can get in great trouble from the conference church. We don't need to know.
And that's why if you've heard me and James say
Yeah.
it several times, I don't need to know if you're carrying. I don't need to know. I don't want to know, no offense. But if you are carrying, just have it in your mind that I may have to act one day. And don't shoot at the pastor. Correct. Don't shoot at the pastor. Or if you are going to shoot, has anybody ever seen that? It's a sign that you'll see in windows, firearms allowed, but keep it concealed. If you do have to draw it, proper shooting is requested or something. It's one of those things because if you do have to, and they tell us this, if we have to get into a shooting, we're responsible for every round. What's behind my target? What's around my target? We're responsible for every round. It's the same thing. You have a responsibility, but you are responsible for it. Did you have a question, sir? Oh.
Jordan, I have a question for you. It was brought up about the door handles on the classrooms, And I'm familiar with those, but I'm not familiar where or how to look those up. Is that something you guys have a resource to?
No, but I can get you that information.
Okay.
Very, 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 very easily. He just left to go to a call, unfortunately, because he
Okay.
worked with his church to get that stuff. And there's probably a couple of different options for that.
Okay.
So I can get you that information very, very quickly, Rob.
All right.
That's easy. I might not have your number anymore, but I'll get it before I leave.
Okay.
That's easy to get you.
Sounds good.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. I was looking this way.
I always, when I see people with big purses or backpacks, this is a red flag. This is something that we need to keep an eye on in the church. And we allowed to ask, if they can open it or not.
You can always ask as a member of the church or as an employee of the church. You can put something up there saying, hey, if you bring a bag or something, it is subject, we can ask you. You can't force somebody to search it. This is not like the school where the students actually can be searched at any time by the school staff. The only time we can start searching people is with consent or if they're under arrest.
And I have another question, and this is not related to the church, it's related to a park.
Okay.
We go to a park in Altamont, we have like a little table to deliver books. This is the second time that we saw this person, and he has a big bag, and he don't look very friendly. And he was not happy for us to doing the books and Christian and everything. So I always care because I say he can open the bag and has something,
Mm-hmm.
Like what can I suggest to the other group to take care of themselves in case that we are there and he has a knife or a gun and we don't have nothing to defend. Like what idea do you think that we can use to be careful there?
Be aware of your surroundings, situational awareness, which it sounds like you already are. But can we go kind of for an example real quick, and then I'll come back to your question. I haven't forgotten. Again, I like to pick on Rob because I know Rob. He's been putting up with me for 17 years now? 18
At least,
years?
yeah.
Something
20
like
years
that.
maybe.
Holy cow. If Rob is in a park, a public park here in Orange City, and he's got a bag and he's sitting there just videotaping kids playing at a birthday party, that's perfectly legal. If someone will call us, as a cop, I can go out there and say, hey man, how you doing? My name is Jordan. And he can look at me and say, get the beep away from me. I don't want to talk to you. And I can't force him to stop recording. I can't force him to talk to me because he's in a public park. It's open to the public. I can't even remove him from the park for there. Because there is no, and this is going to transition to our other thing with the kids, I think. There is no expectation of privacy in a public park. Perfectly legal. In a public park. It's a park that's open to the public. If somebody is out there videotaping my kids and your kids at the same time, how is that any different than if I'm just out there videoing? What crime am I committing? I'm not committing one. Whether I have a child there or not, I'm not. Now, obviously, if somebody tries to follow your child into the bathroom, different story. But in a public park, there is nothing to stop, real world scenario, there is nothing to stop somebody from standing out on a public roadway in front of my house videoing me and my kids playing football. There's no expectation of privacy when they're standing on the public road videoing me in my front yard. Real world scenario, that's actually happening.
Yeah.
Because our patrol cars are in front of our houses.
I'd say pepper spray, wouldn't you say, Serge, as far as what you're talking about for
Yep.
needing something?
100%. Pepper spray, or you said you carry. If some of the people aren't comfortable carrying, wasp spray, I think that came up. It's cheaper. Pepper spray, if you're going to defend yourself. But if somebody's just sitting out there and he can yell at you all he wants, he's not really committing a crime, unfortunately. It stinks. Yeah, there's still kids here. Yeah. It stinks, but it's unfortunately, if somebody wants to just stand out there and say, I hate cops, and they do that sometimes, or I hate people, or I hate Christians, unfortunately, that's protected. It's all free speech. Yes, ma'am.
Shouldn't they get him for something like a hate crime?
If I'm just standing out there saying I hate Christians,
Yeah.
what crime am I committing?
Free speech. Yeah.
Free speech, First Amendment. There's organizations, you'll see them in the rallies, where unfortunately people will, Aryan groups, KKK, they can have these rallies where they'll go through and have rallies. I'm not saying it's right, but it's legally protected.
I guess that's changing the subject a little bit. So the thing that happened in Altamont Springs, Cranes Roost Park, and then Disney in front, they had like the KKK rally too. I don't know if you saw.
Don't know much about that one, to be honest with you. Just using it as an example of being public places, that's all.
But they were never exploited.
If they've got a permit, there's no requirement sometimes to have an escort. Don't need one.
What's that? Oh, okay. Okay, his partner.
You might have. So we have a sergeant that teaches self-defense for women. They actually do the classes. They'll post about it on the Facebook page and such, where it's open up to a number. Could I try that one more time? It's open to a limited number of people. It's a first-come, first-serve, and they do it several times a year. We have 2 defensive tactics instructors, 1 male, 1 female, but they specifically teach females. It's only open to females. Did you want to ask about the kid question with the inappropriate to the kids? Are we talking a member? Are we talking an employee? Or
I would say either one.
okay.
Yeah, like how, if we see someone hanging around kids, yeah, maybe saying something inappropriate, maybe, getting a little too close, maybe not actually having touched a kid inappropriately, but just someone that is just acting very suspicious. What's the best way to handle that?
And you're talking about on the church property?
Yeah.
Okay, because again, going back to the public park, there's nothing to stop somebody, unfortunately, from videoing in a public park. Even if it's not their child, they're still allowed to video it, unfortunately. So as a church member, if you're not comfortable with this person being around the kids, you can always ask them to leave. Is this, I'm assuming, not like maybe like a visitor to the church is what you're talking about? Something like that?
Yeah, we have some people that come every now and then,
Mm-hmm.
and they've said some things that are just a little bit off the wall, and I just don't know if we can say, hey, we don't want you in that room, or
Absolutely.
that's just the kids' room. And
You can restrict anybody. This is, again, quasi-private property. So if you're wanting to not have certain people around, like the children's area and such, you can ask them, hey, we aren't comfortable having you. Hey, Rob. Hey, man, how is it going? Look, I know you help out with the kids a lot, and we appreciate it, but we just don't really want you there anymore, so can you come back over this way? And if Rob says, nope, now we're back to the trespassing, where you can ask Rob to leave. You are very much able to restrict this is your building, this is your church. You are very much able to restrict who you want around your children, period. And if somebody is making people uncomfortable, and it's not just somebody like, hey, I don't like this person, like Rob and I have a beef because for whatever reason, and I'm going to start making complaints, but if it's legitimate, the members of the church, the representative of the church, your elders, your pastor, say we don't want me or Rob around the children, you have every right to ask that.
Good.
That kind of answer your question?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
I got something. Now, what happens? Do we have a lockdown protocol for like a child going missing here?
No.
Okay, that's something we kind of need to sit down with the board.
If we develop an unofficial security team, I think that's the next step. That's what I'm learning from this talk, is that we need to develop some type of team that has some different codes.
And again, cameras are great, because if a child does go missing, even say, we get it all the time with kids wander away, younger kids wander away, autistic kids wander away. Unfortunately, there's been a huge rash of that lately. The quicker we can get a clothing description, I mean, how many times have you ever been asked, hey, what was this person wearing? And you're like, I don't know. If you have cameras, get us that up-to-date video, get us that up-to-date picture, because we can put it out to a lot of people very, very quickly. Hey, let's review the cameras. Timmy went out that door and went that way. Okay, cool, I know Tim was now going west. What time was it? Give me a time lapse. I can get a drone out here. I can get a tracking canine started this way. I can get Air 1. I can get a lot of resources over here. Cameras are great for that. Unfortunately, that's one of the really good advantages of modern technology is it does have a lot of advantages. It's kind of frustrating, but it's...
It's for, I believe, a certain amount of time. It'll, yeah, it's probably 2 weeks, yeah.
And that would be something worth looking into again for kind of in-house setting it up.
Yeah.
But again, if the doors are locked, can the kids really go out? There's only so many ways they can go out. It's just a variety of things. Is that what you were kind of meaning, like if a child wandered off, or are you talking about something else?
Yeah, say, like, I just want to know if we have any kind of security measures in place, like if a child goes missing, like, what's our protocol here? You know,
Yeah.
what measures are we taking? You know, what steps do these people in charge or on a team know what steps to take? Like, where do they go? You know, who's their point of contact? You know,
Yeah, I
like
think
stuff like that.
we first need to have a team.
Yeah.
And then once we have a team, then we will invite James back, you can come as well, and get officially trained. Because there's only so much we can do as a church, and
Yeah.
there's only so much he can actually tell us now. But I think if you have a team that has plans in place for all these different things, then that's the next step.
Now, another thing, for the people we trespass, do we have like a binder, their pictures and stuff like that? Would be a good thing to have.
We don't have anything right now.
Yeah. That's something. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just throwing this out there so this is something to go back on.
So
Yeah.
if we do issue a trespass warning, we give you all a copy of it, which has their information on it. There's not a photo of it, but it does have their name, date of birth, that sort of thing. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Photographs, thank you very much, for sex offenders in the area. I think it's from your department. We got a color photo, so we appreciate that.
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. Did that kind of answer your question? Yeah. Okay, just making sure. I didn't want you to feel like being... Oh, yeah. The problem is once you go down this rabbit hole, there's a lot of stuff to go down to, and when you start really looking at it, there's a lot to think about.
I think at any time parents need to have their kids under their supervision. So I think parents need to be taught that they need to have their kids always under their supervision.
I caught most of that. I heard you say the parents, that they need to be responsible for their kids?
Yes.
Under supervision? Yeah.
Yes, because
100%.
I know an experience from another church. It was the son of a very nice family. And the son ended up being a child offender. So everybody, the kids were not supervised for this person. And he ended up in the jail. That's why it's very important the parents to be encouraged to have their kids always at any time under their supervision.
Agreed. Can I ask a question? Do y'all have cameras in your children's area? It's a good thing to have. It's a good thing to have. It's a really good thing to have. Who has access to that? Just something to be thinking about if you get a complaint, something to go back and review. What else you got? I know we've talked about a lot of stuff today. I know we've thrown a lot of stuff at y'all today. But again, if I can't answer the question, I will get you an answer, and we'll go from there. But we want you guys to feel comfortable. This is a church.
If you would ask James how he trained the general members of his congregation how to react if they are dealing with someone on campus that shouldn't be there, that is a threat, there has to be something that the general population of the church can do in a react. If they're dealing with someone in the sanctuary, it's a problem. As someone sitting in the pews, what are we supposed to do is what I'm trying to find out. If he trained his staff and he's trained his church, I would like to know the answer to that.
So he trains his staff. We can't, because not every church member is going to want to take responsibility. They're not. I would say that's situation specific. And the reason I say that is because if someone walks in and starts shooting, I would hope everybody wouldn't just sit in the pews. People would need to drop down. Some of the folks are going to go engage him. The rest are going to start getting out of there. The people in the nursery should lock down or start working on them. And again, that's going to be part of your team's plans, your employer, your elders' plans. If this happens, where do they go? Who's responsible for this? Because whoever's in the child area now is now responsible for those children. Kind of like what the young lady back there said. You know, it is responsible. So my answer would be it's all kind of different. If somebody comes in here and sits down in the pew and just starts yelling at the pastor, is that something where everybody needs to get up and immediately vacate the pews? Not necessarily. You know, the pastor can have a conversation. One of the elders can come over and say, hey, we'd like you to leave. If he refuses, contact us. And at that point, we get him to leave once we get here. Is that something that necessarily needs to have every? But if one of the elders, if it's over here and he's arguing with the pastor, and one of the elders comes over and goes, hey guys, come on, let's just start walking this way. And we start escorting him out, that can be an option. Everything is situation specific though. That's the problem, is because, at least with law enforcement, there's so many different ways that things can go. And we tell people this all the time. How this contact with you today ends is going to depend on you. If you decide to fight, if you decide to run, if you decide to just talk to me, it's 3 different variances right then and there. We just try to prepare for the worst. And you try to just tell people, be open-minded. What could happen today? What could go wrong today? What's going to go right today? But you can't plan for everything, so you have to have an open mind and be able to be flexible. Does that kind of make sense?
Well, I would like to put in I heard some people say it as well, is that if you, and I know you're talking about the general congregation, if you will, people are going to react differently. There's going to be people that will freeze. They're just out of terror. They don't know what to do. There's going to be people that panic and they freak out and run, or whatever the case may be. And the biggest thing is to stay out of the way. If we have a team that's to deal with that situation, the last thing anybody needs to do is get in the way. Because then now all of a sudden you're bringing somebody else in the situation. They could turn around and take you as a hostage, right? I mean, I'm talking about, real world, something that's
worst case
critical.
Scenario.
Yeah, worst case scenario. So the best thing is first stay out of the way. Let the people who are going to deal with the situation. You have a cell phone, call 911. If you want to get out of here, grab Kane and Aiden, get out. I'm not going to tell you no, you know what I mean? Unless we know there's somebody out back there that we spotted it on the camera, best to stay in right now. So like you said, it could be 1,000 different scenarios we don't know. Yeah.
And the problem is with every action, it's 1,000 new scenarios. And it makes it really, really fun to do some of these things. I know I've thrown a whole lot at you today, and I'm sorry, but you asked, so we told you we were going to answer. What else y'all got?
Any more?
Only.
Thank you, Jordan, for being here. He just said he hoped it helped. Did it help? Okay, good. All right. Well, let's have a quick word of prayer. Okay. Let's just stand right here. Okay. Yeah. Father in heaven, Lord, we thank you, for this time that we've been able to spend with Jordan and James, who had to leave. And Lord, I just ask that you will, protect, all of our first responders. Watch over them. We are so thankful for what they do, for our community. And so we lift them up before you today. And help us as a church, to go forward and to be able to implement those things that we need to do to make sure that our church is as safe as possible. We thank you, Lord, in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thanks. Appreciate you. You got it, brother. We'll talk again.
Yeah.
I'll get some numbers.
Okay, absolutely. Thank you.